Welcome to Team Building 101. In today's video, I'm going to discuss on how to team build and what you should do when you're team building. First things first is knowing your types. Know your types, learn your types, know your types, study this chart. This is really important. I cannot stress how important this is for PvP. If there's one takeaway I want you all to have from this video is the typings. Learn the weaknesses and resistances. Learning that is already automatically 50% of the team building process. Trust me, it will be the most important thing you will ever do. I want to thank Reddit user Argy for this wonderful chart for typings. I will have the link to their post in the description. Next is team composition. You first want to check out what the meta is. This is key on deciding what to use. PvP is going to be your best friend when it comes to checkings on the rankings. Most people will say that the meta is a top 10 ranked Pokemon, and I agree. Those are the Pokemon you want to look out for, and the ones that you will need to counter properly. Most people will not run all 10 or even all 5, but they will run at least 2. Be prepared for that and don't be afraid to use them either. They are ranked highly for a reason. Consider at least running one of the meta picks as they tend to complement most teams. After you look at the top 10, look at the rest of the list. There will be interesting Pokemon on there and can not only surprise your opponent, but arguably even better than some of the top 10. These are considered non-meta picks or flex picks as some might say. I know you all see the Relicanth in the bottom, and that is an example of a non-meta pick. Back in Boulder Cup Season 1 of the Silph Arena, I ran Relicanth as a Skarmory counter the first time around. Skarmory was one of, if not the best Pokemon in Boulder before the Mirror Cup came. Of course, even after the Mirror Cup, it was still one of the best Pokemon. Due to Relicanth's non-existence in the meta, no one knew how to really properly counter it, nor did they know what it can do. With that in mind, I knew that most people not knowing how to counter it, I would be able to use it more effectively. With it netting me a 5-0 in 2 Boulder Cups that I did. Relicanth also got me all the way to the semifinals of the North American Championships, and almost all of my opponents told me that they didn't know what Relicanth did, and by the time they realized what it can do, it was too little, too late for them. As you can see, non-meta picks can be good, as most people will not even consider looking at them when building their own team, focusing too much on the top 10. Another word for building is called unbalanced. Those are teams that are 3 or more Pokemon have a certain weakness, like bringing 3 water types. You can force your opponent into bringing the water counters and exploit that way of thinking by bringing 3 counters for the water counters. Now we got team composition out of the way, it's time to decide on what to use. I mentioned counters before. Let me explain that quickly. Counters are Pokemon that, due to their typings, keyword, typings, are able to farm using mainly fast moves and not wasting any shields. Practice makes perfect, and PvP can help with that. The website has an online battle simulator along with the rankings that can help check these counters. As mentioned before, look at the top 10 Pokemon and learn their counters. That will help you on deciding what to use. Most of the top 10 tend to share a common weakness that you can exploit, leading to what I call a pivot Pokemon. Some call it a safe switch. A pivot Pokemon is a Pokemon that can answer at least 4 or more of the top meta, or can help cover 2 or more of your team, almost regardless of what your other 2 Pokemon are. It might be a bit confusing with what I mean by that, but let me show you that with an example. As you can see on my screen, that is my North American Championships team, or NAC team. Most of the meta was answered with Relicanth and Ludicolo, with Relicanth being my anti-flyer, meaning you can get rid of most flying types, and Ludicolo answering all the water types. Both of these Pokemon shared a common weakness, which was grass. Knowing full well that a grass type can destroy these 2, I need something that can resist both grass and be able to take them out, leading to Skarmory. Due to that, Skarmory became my pivot Pokemon for most matches, as it was able to switch into almost anything that Ludicolo or Relicanth couldn't answer. Next is deciding on your core. By that I mean, what are the 3 Pokemon that can answer not only the top 10, but can answer most of the Pokemon available. You don't always need to have a core before battling, but it helps as you know that this is a consistent team of 3 that are able to take down most threats. Back to my NAC example. My core was Relicanth, Ludicolo, and Skarmory. Relicanth was able to take down the flying types, more specifically Skarmory, that I knew was going to be common. Ludicolo defeats all water types except for Mantine, which both Relicanth and Skarmory can defeat. And finally, Skarmory was able to take down the grass types that I knew was able to defeat me quite easily. Practicing is important with your team. Knowing that you can and cannot handle when you're making your current team and making adjustments along the way. It's very important to do that. Let's get to some team synergy. And what better way than to give an example by what I mean. First example is what's being shown on screen. Let's say I have an Azumarill. I know Azumarill weaknesses are grass, poison, and electric. Well, grass and poison can both be handled by Skarmory, but I still have a weakness to electric. Well, that weakness can be covered by grass type, so I decided to use Venusaur. Venusaur also resists grass and takes neutral from poison, meaning it can also be a good switch in for grass types and for poison types. In this example, Venusaur is a good pivot Pokemon, as it resists Azumarill's weaknesses and Skarmory's weaknesses. Next, we'll be deciding on your movesets. Movesets all depend on the current meta. I have two examples of a very flexible Pokemon. In Tropius. Tropius has two really good fast moves, in Air Slash and Razor Leaf. The former, Air Slash, being able to spam charge moves, while the latter, Razor Leaf, can take things down very quickly. But you can predict what fast moves it will most likely run depending on the meta. Like, Tropius will run Razor Leaf if it's a heavy water meta, or will run Air Slash if it's a heavy grass meta. Some Pokemon do not change their movesets at all for three reasons. 1. Its moveset is already so good that it doesn't need to change it at all. 2. It doesn't have any other good moves apart from the common set. Or 3. It's a combination of both. In this case, we have Skarmory, perfectly illustrating the third reason. Skarmory runs Air Slash, Sky Attack, and Flash Cannon. Although it's easily walled by Steel and Rock types, Air Slash, Sky Cannon, and Flash Cannon are the best movesets for Skarmory to run. There's also another important aspect in team building, learning all the moves a Pokemon can get. And I know this may be impossible, maybe almost impossible, as there are a lot of things in our personal lives that we need to dedicate to and may not have the time to learn all the possible moves. At least learn the movesets of the meta Pokemon. That will help you the most if you cannot learn all the moves of every Pokemon. The more you learn about moves though, the better you will be. Although if you PvP often enough, you will pick up on the moves of most Pokemon. Don't be afraid to experiment. When it comes to team building, no one team is perfect and every team has flaws. With that in mind, know your flaws. Do not let the other opponent exploit them. Although it can be on purpose, as I explained earlier, with making unbalanced teams, that requires more in-depth knowledge on the typings. Anti-meta picks can be fun and even better than meta picks, like the cast forms and Drifblim. I will now be showing you an example on how to team build. Now we're going to go into some examples on how to team build with what we have learned. I'm using Pokemon Showdown. That's a online battle simulator website. It's also a good place to build teams and also to see your team and also to see your movesets. So right now we're going to start off with Sunny Cast Form. So I'm going to look up for Sunny Cast Form and it's right here. So this is Sunny Cast Form. So I know that, don't worry about anything else. All these are items. This is the ability and this is the base stats and the EVs. Don't worry about any of that. If you play competitive Pokemon, you will understand what most of these things are, but don't worry. Pokemon Go, none of this exists. This doesn't exist, so don't worry about any of this. We're just using this so I can show you the Pokemon and show you the movesets. So with Sunny Day Cast Form, we are going to be running Ember and of course Weather Ball. We're going to run Ember Weather Ball because this is the best moveset for Cast Form, as well as Solar Beam, because why not? We're just gonna assume we have an unlimited amount of Stardust, so we're able to power things up and to double move it. So don't worry, sometimes you don't need to double move Pokemon. Like for example, Cast Form doesn't really need that double move, but it helps. So we're just gonna go with we're just gonna assume that we can double move. So now we have Sunny Day Cast Form. Cast Form is a pure fire type, which means its weakness is water, ground, water, ground, and rock. So now we want something to complement fire. So water, ground, and rock. So water resists water. Water does super effective damage to ground and rock. So we should have a water type. So now from there we can run with Azumarill. Azumarill is going to have Bubble because that's the most common moveset, because that's actually the best fast move. And we're going to have Play Rough to be able to hit the Azumarill matchups, and Ice Beam. So we're going to run Ice Beam. So Azumarill actually complements Cast Form pretty well because Azumarill is part water. So that takes care of Cast Form's major weaknesses. But now we have the Water Fairy. So now we are with Water Fairy. We are weak to Grass, Poison, and Electric. Well, Castform doesn't really resist Electric, and Castform does well against Fire. So we don't really have to worry about the Grass typing, because Castform takes care of the Grass for us. But we are still weak to Electric. So now we're going to want to have a ground type. So I'm just going to search up ground, and then I'm just going to look up for all the ground types that we have available. And I think a good ground type would be, let's see, would be Gliscor. See, with Gliscor we're going to run Fury Cutter, Earthquake, and we are also going to run Aerial Ace. So we can shield bait. Oops, I misspelled. Let me see. Ace. There we go. Aerial Ace. So with Gliscor now, we have an added weakness to Ice. But Azumarill and Castform both take care of Ice. So right here we actually have a pretty good core with Azumarill taking care of Castform's weaknesses, Gliscor taking care of Azumarill's weaknesses, and Castform taking care of Gliscor's weakness. Gliscor's weakness being Ice, Azumarill's weakness being Grass. Castform takes care of both of them. Castform's weakness of Water, Rock, and Ground is being taken care of Azumarill. And Azumarill's weakness of Electric and Grass, well, we already said the Grass is being taken care of by Castform. The weakness to Electric is being taken care of by Gliscor. Now from here we can experiment and put something else. So let's see. So we have Gliscor. Gliscor is a good anti-flyer, so it's able to take care of Probobast, Bastiodon, Bastiodon, and the Magnezone. So it's able to take care of those pretty reliably. But let's see, what do we want? We should have an anti-flyer as well. So we want to have a rock type actually. So that, well, if we have a rock type, we are now more weak to ground. See, so at that point we'll be weak to Swampert. That's fine. We'll just go with a rock type. So a good rock type for this would be, let's see, a good rock type. We can actually run Probopass. Probopass would have Spark. Oops. Would have Spark, Rock Slide, because that's better, and we can run Thunderbolt. So with that, Probopass is also weak to ground. So now we have two things that are weak to ground. We only have one ground checker, and we have, well, in a way, Gliscor, being part flying, is actually also immune to ground. But we still have a pretty common weakness of ground, because even though Azumarill does hit ground types, is super effective, it only takes neutral damage from ground. So we don't really have anything resisting ground. So we should have a grass type, so that we can resist ground. And from there, we can go, we don't really want grass poison. A lot of people would actually go for Victory Bell or Venusaur, both being really good grass type users. But the thing is, they're part poison. So really, the weakness to ground, now you're taking neutral damage to ground, because poison takes super effective damage from ground, but grass resists it. So really, in a way, you're not resisting ground. You're still taking neutral damage to ground. So you want to have either a pure grass type, a grass flying, other types of combinations for grass, not just grass poison. Because again, that just defeats the purpose of being able to take down ground types. So we can go, I want to make sure that I can get a grass type that everyone can use. I'm trying to make sure that we don't use region exclusives, regionals, because that would seem unfair. So I'm just trying to make this team as open as possible. So we can actually have Breloom. Breloom gets access to Counter, Seed Bomb, which is not that bad of a moveset, and Dynamic Punch. So with this, counter is actually one of the best fast moves in the whole entire game. So with counter, we get really good energy gain, and we're able to hit the ground types for seed bomb. Ground types for super effective damage with seed bomb. So with that, we actually have a pretty good check to not only anti-flyers, which is already Gliscor, because most anti-flyers are part steel type or rock type. So we're hitting super effective with counter. We're also hitting the ground types with seed bomb for super effective on seed bomb. So Breloom is really weak to flying, but we have Probopass that takes care of the flying types. Azumarill does decently well against them, and Castform does really well against the grass types. So now here we would want to have, let's see. So now we only have one fire resist. We have two fire resists, but Castform doesn't really do that well against fire. Because it only has fire moves and grass moves, so it's a fire resist, but not really that well. We have a Azumarill that gets rid of fire types, and Ice Beam helps it against the grass types. We have Gliscor that's able to take care of the anti-flyers and is able to really spam out the aerial ace and do good damage with Earthquake. We have Probopass that takes care of the flying types, which would scare Breloom away. And we have Breloom that takes care of the anti-flyers and also takes care of the ground types. So now at this point, let's see, we would want to have maybe something to take care of water types. Because while yes, Breloom does have access to Seed Bomb and counter, Breloom is pretty frail. It doesn't really take not very effective damage from the water types. And Azumarill does take not very effective from water, but it's also doing not very effective with bubble, and being able to only have an answer with play rough doesn't really help it. And Probopass, while yes it is tanky, does take super effective damage from water. So you don't really want to have it against water types. Even though Spark does do super effective against water, if you have something, let's say like Ludicolo, well, even Spark really won't help you that much. So we want to have something that can get rid of water types. So Breloom does resist water, Azumarill does resist water, Gliscor takes super effective damage from water because of the ground typing, so does Probopass, and so does Castform. So we want to have another water resist. So we can add either another water or another grass. So let's see. Maybe we should add another water, because water tends to be one of the best typings, both offensive and defensively. We can add another water type that can help us out. So let's see. See what other water type should we add. We can add Lapras. Well, that will give us another weakness to fighting. Only Gliscor and Azumarill being the two answers to fighting, so we don't really want to add Lapras. I know a lot of people like Lapras. It is really tanky, but it's another weakness to fighting that only two Pokemon resist. So there's really no point in adding a Lapras. We can add Lantern. Lantern would be another anti-flyer, although that would be another weakness to ground, which already ground does good damage against Castform and Probopass. So if we have a team of Castform, Probopass, and Lantern, we would basically lose to something like Swampert. So we don't really want to have Lantern. We don't really want to have Qwilfish either because they're part poison. Let's see. We can add Mantine. But that would give us a weakness to electric. That would give us another weakness to electric. We can add Ludicolo, being another water grass. Water grass is actually very good, and Ludicolo only loses to one water type, which actually Probopass can take care of. So let's actually add Ludicolo. Ludicolo's main moveset would be Razor Leaf, Ice Beam to hit the other grass types, and Hydro Pump as your water stab. And if there's no shields, or if your opponent doesn't shield properly, you can actually Hydro Pump and be able to take KOs. So right here we have a pretty good team, with Castform being the star of this. So Castform being part fire with Ember Weather Ball. It's weak to ground, which Azumarill and Ludicolo both take care of. Ludicolo and Azumarill both are flying to super effective damage against Ludicolo, which Probopass can take care of. Probopass can take care of all the flyers that would give us some problem, like for Breloom and Ludicolo. And we have Gliscor to get rid of anti-flyers. The anti-flyers, so like Probopass, Magnezone, and Bastiodon. We have Breloom that also does the same thing and can also get rid of the ground types. And Ludicolo can get rid of the ground and the water types. So the next Pokemon we have is Flygon. Flygon's actually a pretty interesting Pokemon. Ground Dragon. It's actually a pretty interesting typing. In the actual Pokemon game, Ground Dragon is actually a really good offensive typing. And in Pokemon Go, it actually is also a pretty decent offensive typing, especially if you can make use of it. So with Flygon, you're going to run Mud Shot, Dragon Claw, and Earthquake. This is like the ideal moveset for Flygon. Flygon's with Mud Shots able to spam out Dragon Claw in about, I think, 4 Mud Shots. In 4 Mud Shots it can do Dragon Claw, and about 7 Mud Shots it can do about 7 or 8 Mud Shots it can do Earthquake. So it's actually really good at spamming out its movesets and being able to take advantage and shield bait. So with Flygon, right now Flygon immediately should scream out weak to ice, weak to ice, weak to ice. So again, this is where I'm talking about where your typings, you need to know your typings really, really well. If there's one thing you take away from all this, is learn your typings. If you see Flygon is Ground Dragon, weak to ice. So we immediately want to have something that resists ice. So with that, we can have water types, we can have ice types, we can have steel types, we can have fire types. We can also have, let's see, fire. Let's see what else. Ice, I already said. So we would need those types to take care of it. So with that, we will have Lapras. Lapras is actually a really good general all-around user. It's really tanky. Its ice typing gives it amazing offensive pressure, while the water typing, even though ice is one of the worst defensive typings, the water typing actually helps out. So with that, we're gonna run Water Gun, Surf, and it's actually been rising in popularity, which I can actually see the reason for it. Skull Bash. So with that, we are resisting ice types, while if it's just a normal ice type, Water Gun will be doing neutral damage. If it's a water ice, Water Gun will be resistant. But still, I would still go with Water Gun than Ice Shard, because Ice Shard, while yes hitting the ice types for Ice Shard for hitting grass types and ground and grass for super effective, it's not really that worth it. Water Gun actually makes you be able to spam out Surf and Skull Bash a lot easier. So Skull Bash is, so if you're going against like let's say a Lapras mirror match or a water mirror match, Skull Bash is actually a good one-time use. If you don't shield it, it's gonna hurt, and even if you shield it, it's a guaranteed +1 defense on you, which now makes Lapras even tankier. So with that, we don't really have anything to really get rid of water types, because even if you throw out Lapras against an ice type, if they're part water, you're really getting walled. So now we want to have an electric or grass. But with that, I would actually go with electric, because the electric typing will still be able to do good against ice, so not taking super effective, unlike grass, which would be taking super effective. So now we're going to search for an electric type. Lantern's actually pretty decent. It resisting the ice damage that would hit Flygon. So we can maybe let's keep looking for an ice for another electric type. Although I really think Lantern would fit this team better. We can't use Rotom. Ooh, we can actually go to this generation. Well, no, let's stick up more to these, because even with the new, these are generation 5 mons, but even with this, there really isn't anything that's really good. Because even though Sunfisk is electric type, that ground weakness still gives it weak to ice. So let's see. Let's go with Lantern. Like I already said, Lantern will be carrying Water Gun because it's better than Charge Beam. Thunderbolts to get rid of the get rid of the water types, and Hydro Pump, which is just an all-around good move. So here we have a pretty decent team. Lantern being able to take care of the flying types, Lapras taking care of the ice types in a way, and Flygon being able to take care of the ground type of the no, not the ground types. It will be able to take care the steel types that would, well, Lantern still takes care of it, but Lapras would have some problem with steel. So with that, we have 2 ice resists, but we don't have any counter resist. So we don't have any fighting resist. So we should get something that resists fighting. So something that resists fighting would be flying types and ghost types. Actually, I know something that is good against that. Drifblim. Surprisingly enough, Drifblim is actually a pretty good fighting type counter, and it's pretty good against the ever-present Vigoroth. That can actually give this team some headache, because Vigoroth can actually beat Lantern in the one shield scenario if you don't shield the Bulldoze correctly. With counter, it's able to defeat Lapras and being able to spam with Body Slam. And Flygon versus Vigoroth. Vigoroth actually is able to do more damage than Flygon, and is able to spam out Body Slam while Flygon is spamming out Dragon Claw. But Vigoroth is able to do more damage overall. So Drifblim is actually pretty good. Drifblim is able to provide a counter to Vigoroth, and it's also able to provide a counter to fighting, which is already something we're weak to. And Vigoroth is weak to the ice types as well, but we have Lantern and Lapras both to take care of that ice weakness, so we don't have to worry about that. Now, with that, we added another typing, Ghost. So now Ghost does super effective. Ghost is weak to Ghost and Dark. So now we want something that can resist Dark. And something that resists Dark is both fighting and Dark type. But I have a perfect Pokemon for that. We can actually add the brand new, well, it's going to be coming out very soon, the brand new Scrafty. So Scrafty is actually really good to pair up with Drifblim, because Drifblim is weak to Ghost and to the Ghost, Ice, and Dark. Scrafty, with counter, is able to get rid of the Dark types that would threaten Drifblim, but it's still now counter isn't doing anything against the Ghost types. Like we already said, Ghost is immune to normal, so you're not doing anything to Ghost is immune to normal and to fighting, so you're not going to be doing anything with counter. But little do they know, Scrafty has Foul Play. So with Foul Play, now you're able to hit the Ghost types with super effective damage. It's actually very good. And to round it up, we would carry you can either carry Power Punch or Acid Spray. I think Power Punch would just be better overall. Scrafty is pretty tanky, so it's able to get rid of things. So it's able to Power Punch in front of a Ghost type. You can Shield Bait actually with Power Punch against Ghost types, and then hit Foul Play if they shield the Power Punch, thinking that you have Power Punch or Acid Spray. And most Scrafties will be carrying Power Punch and Acid Spray. That is a moveset that a lot of people are thinking of running. So it's very easy to have people forget that Scrafty learns Foul Play. So here we have a pretty decent team, but we are actually weak to Charm users, to the Fairy types. Scrafty being 4x weak to Charm, Flygon being really weak to Charm, and none of these Pokemon really hitting Charm for super effective. So we have 3 options for Charm users. We have Steel that resists Charm, we have Poison types, and we also have the Fire types. All 3 of them resist Charm. So with that in mind, I would actually want to go with a Steel type. Actually, no, let's not go with Steel, because Steel will give us another weakness to Ground, which right now Ground hits everything for neutral except for Lantern, which hits for super effective, and Drifblim is immune to it, but Ground really wouldn't be that good. No with Fire, no with Poison. Let's see. Actually, let's see what the Steel types are. see if we like any steel types. Um, mm, we can have Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn can get, well, Ferrothorn can't really get rid of the charm users. Let's see. Um, let's try Poison instead. And we can get Poison. Let's see. What's a good poison type we can use that resists charm? So you wouldn't want to go with Skuntank or Drapion. That part dark typing means charm is doing neutral, so you don't want that. You also wouldn't want Toxicroak. That part fighting means it's taking neutral damage from charm. So again, you don't want those two. Let's see. We can add Garbodor. Infestation, Acid Spray. That would still give us a weakness to ground that we don't really want. We can try to add Scolipede to this. Scolipede being part bug, Scolipede is taking neutral damage from the... It's taking neutral damage it's taking neutral damage from ground. Actually, we can. Scolipede is actually not that bad. So we'll add Scolipede. So we'll have Scolipede, we'll have Poison Jab, Sludge Bomb, and we can add Mega Horn. So Scolipede is actually not that bad. Scolipede is able to take care of the fairy types, which most fairy types carry charm, with Poison Jab, Sludge Bomb, and Mega Horn. Poison Jab is doing super effective against poison types. Against fairy types, while Sludge Bomb is also doing the same thing. But the thing is, Scolipede is weak to Psychic, but Scrafty's Dark type means it's immune to Psychic. So even doing is taking neutral damage from so fighting gets super effective from the Psychic types because of the immunity of Dark type. It's actually taking less damage from Psychic. So with that, this is actually a pretty good Flygon team. So Flygon would be weak to ice, which both Lapras and Lantern take care of. Lantern and Lapras are both weak to well, Lantern is weak. They're both weak to electric types, which Flygon takes care of. And they're both kind of weak to counter users, which Drifloon takes care of, and so does Scolipede. Scolipede is actually really good against counter users as well, because that bug poison means it's 4x weak. It's 4x resistant to counter. So a good team for this would be Flygon. So you can lead with Flygon, having Lantern in the back for the ice types, and Scrafty in the back for... What would that... No, you would have Drifloon in the back for the ground types that would threaten Lantern. So Drifloon is able to take care of the ground types. Lantern is able to take care of the flying types that would threaten Scrafty and Scolipede. Drifloon is able to take care of the fighting types that would threaten Scrafty. And we can have Lapras that also takes care of the fighting types. Finally, have fun. At the end of the day, PvP is to have fun and to hang out with your community. Hopefully this video has helped you all out with some of the fundamentals of team building. And hopefully this has shown you my thought process into team building, and hopefully this can go into your thought process of team building. If there's any questions you have, feel free to leave a comment down below. You can also follow me on Twitter if you have any questions on PvP or anything else Pokemon related. My Twitter will also be on the description down below.